Joe Justice je svetovno priznan strokovnjak za agilne pristope proizvodnji, and I will switch now to English. So Joe, first a check. Can you hear us? Can you see us? This is the hall. We will turn this camera a little bit, Lado, so he will see the whole hall. Okay. Now, as an intro to your presentation, which we are all awaiting because there's a nice brand that's on the projector here. We are in the first floor of this conference center, and down on the left, there are actually a lot of Tesla superchargers and a couple of Teslas. So we are eager to hear the story how Agile in Tesla is actually going on. So Joe, without further ado, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm absolutely grateful. Let me do a technical check. I can see the group wonderfully well. I can hear the microphone very well. So any conversation through the microphone should be fine. Can folks hear me okay? And can you see Agile at Tesla?
We can see the presentation. We can see you. We can hear you. Everything is perfect.
Excellent. I'm grateful. What I'd like to move, I have this arrow here of speed of innovation. And at the bottom left, I have annual budgets when we plan finances a year or more in advance. And that's what I will define as waterfall. Because we can't make a meaningful change within a budget without free approval to rearrange money. And we'll go through Scrum, where we have 30-day or shorter budgets called sprints, to Agile, where we don't have a rhythm. The budget is defined as a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference to the shorter time scale. And then move all the way up to Agile at Tesla, where there are no budgets, no estimates, and all of the 110,000 employees are empowered to spend money. In fact, the question about money is, are we spending it fast enough? And are we spending it as efficiently as we can? And that decision is pushed to every individual employee. What I learned working with Elon Musk is management is replaced by joining the mobs, the engineering mobs, and by apps called digital self-management. There were no annual reviews. There were no performance reviews. Your primary income was based on stock price. Instead, what motivated you is your direct access to the engineering. In fact, we would deploy 60 new parts every day. My apologies, I had a video issue. There. We would deploy 60 new parts every day. Our job was then to delete 61 parts every day. So the total part count on the Model 3 would actually continually go down. It would go to now less than 8,000 parts on the car. That was your motivation. There was no performance review. There was no managerial review. There was no performance or annual review. Instead, you would try to get new parts onto the cars that were backwards compatible. Backwards compatibility in parts made maintenance easy. And you do this every day. Some new parts took months to develop, but some took as short as 3 hours. We would be pushing new parts directly through the queue in production every day. There's also no difference between design and production in a company like Tesla. As an employee, you're not hired for production or hired for design. You're hired as an employee, and your job is to do both and production processes. Different than most companies where there's an office to do software and an office to do design and an office to manage and then a factory to build, all of that work happens in the factory. Software development happens sitting on the concrete floor in a circle with other people with laptops or a big screen. There's actually some videos of this now. In the fly-through of Giga Brandenburg, you can see a team standing in a circle on the manufacturing line with a Kanban board. This is a perfect example of how new product development or software development happened, and it would happen in mob. What makes this motivating is that Elon is in the building also. Elon goes to wherever the building is, Elon Musk, the wealthiest person on planet Earth, and Elon doesn't wear a Gucci belt or Fendi shoes. Elon wears work shoes, black jeans, and a Tesla t-shirt, and Elon is building cars or building rockets in the case of SpaceX. Elon is putting material into robots, Elon is drilling metal, Elon is sweeping the floor, and Elon sleeps on the floor in a sleeping bag. Elon doesn't own a house anymore. The schedule's tough. We work 12-hour shifts, and I don't want to say expected, it's encouraged for you to come in an hour early to visit what comes before where you think you're going to be working today, to learn about what's happening before something gets to you, and then stay an hour or 2 hours after your 12-hour shift to follow the parts you made that day and see how the next parts are being designed, improved, manufactured. So often you're in the building 14 hours or 15 hours. However, you work for 3 days and then you have 4 days off. The next week you work for 4 days and then you have 3 days off. Now, some people choose to work all 7 days. Elon works all 7 days. Elon hasn't taken a vacation in 10 years. But for most of us, it's actually really fun. You have a 4-day weekend one week and a 3-day weekend the next week. But yes, during the off time, the only time you see your family is to sleep. you just go directly to work. But it's very motivating because Elon works as hard as anyone or harder. Then there's an 1,000-year goal. That makes management almost not needed. You know the goal is to reduce the number of days between now and when the last internal combustion car is made, when the transition to sustainable energy has happened. That's your job. So you don't have to ask anyone, should I do this or should I do that? Most humans can judge actually very quickly between 2, 3, or even 10 choices when you have a set long-term goal, really long-term, like 1,000 years. Because the goal of the Musk companies spreads all the way through colonizing Mars, colonizing other star systems. You can see this goal when you're making daily decisions. Then there's the software called digital self-management. What digital self-management does is it answers most of the questions that you might have asked a more experienced employee or a manager. If you want to ask, should I buy this robot? Is that a good use of funds? Instead of asking a manager, you would ask the digital self-management app. Part of that app is called AutoBidder. AutoBidder has been trained on selling energy back to the world's utilities on the open market, and then trained on selling insurance premiums for Tesla insurance on the open market, like an exchange, like a stock exchange. It's been doing this for years, and it's now very good. What AutoBidder as AI software is really good at doing is finding out, are you getting the best price? So you don't have to wait for a procurement department. You don't have to wait for a manager. You just ask AutoBidder as any employee. And then you already know if you're getting the most respectful price, and you buy it. You don't wait for anybody. What this does is eliminate most wait states. Agile at Tesla is a lot about going as fast as you sustainably can. And digital self-management is a huge part of it. Then another frequent cause of delay in hardware is, can I change something now? Because then we'd have to retest the car. Most car companies make a significant change every 2.5 years. It's called the minor model change. Then a major change or complete change happens every 5 to 7 years in what's called the model change cycle. As mentioned, at Tesla, there are 60 new parts every day. This is completely unusual in hardware manufacturing. So part of digital self-management helps you with that. It's called factory mode. What factory mode does is, as soon as every car is put together, it completes a suite of automated tests itself to certify itself. The car physically drives itself through every road legal homologation and certification test. That means you don't have to wait 10 minutes, 10 days, or 10 years. If you think of a less expensive, safer, quieter way to design or build any part, you deploy it immediately, because that car will be road legal tested itself. Every car does. This is called factory mode. What this means is there's no batching, there's no waiting. So in waterfall, you have a year or longer budget cycle. You can't make a significant change until that budget cycle is done or reallocated. Scrum splits the budget into 30-day or less sprints, and you're on a rhythm, a sprint rhythm. And in between those, you have Scaled Agile Framework, which introduces quarterly rhythms of train releases. Those are good things. They're all increasing the pace of innovation. By the time you get to Agile at Tesla, there is no rhythm. Parts are introduced immediately, 60 times a day. Design is in the factory floor, production is in the factory floor. Here's what the car's displays look like when they're in factory mode and they're certifying themselves road legal. Hardware is also tested in unit testing, in huge testing farms. These testing farms never stop. As soon as a part is made, like a heat pump or a new door handle or a trunk lid or a bumper or electronics to fire the airbags, they are put into these never-ending test cycles, and no part is pulled out until it fails. These test farms simply get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger for long-running tests. What this makes is a library of approved materials and material interactions. So when we're designing a new part, we don't wait to physically test the part. The millions of hours of aging testing on the same material has already been completed. And we know if we make the parts out of these materials and these materials are touching, we have a very clear simulation of what the accelerated aging is going to be like. So we don't wait to physically test the parts. As soon as they're designed in 3 dimensions in CAD, they're manufactured and put into the cars directly, and the cars begin testing themselves. This is the same at SpaceX. This picture actually is at SpaceX. Now, Tesla and SpaceX do create new materials. When this happens, then yes, the design does wait for physical testing of the new materials to be made. And as an employee, this is the kind of view you see all the time. I spent a lot of time working in paints, in coatings. In paints and in coatings, what you wish you could do is ask a manager, if I make a change to the paint mix, if I make a change to the nozzles on the paint robots, if I make a change to the clothes, the protectors the robots wear, will it improve the paint or not? And in paint, that typically means you have an expert craftsperson who's been working in paint for more than 10 years, and they examine every cubic millimeter of the car. And this takes about a day. So you don't want to make any change to a paint process. Once you have it set up correctly, you want to leave it that way forever. Well, then how do you paint a car when its shape, at least in some places, is changing 60 times a day? And how do you paint a car consistently when your paint mix, the robots and the robot nozzles are changing potentially 60 times a day? It'd be too slow. You'd have to wait about a day for every car to be inspected. And you'd need more than 1,000 pro paint inspectors on every shift inspecting every single car for about a day. Instead, the question you're asking is the paint better than it was before? Tesla has made a machine learning stack, an artificial intelligence entity that answers that question for you. What it does is it's a series of cameras all around the cars as they exit paint, and they measure each photon of light, each wavelength of light as it strikes the car. As it comes back, the cameras measure the photon of light, its power or magnitude, and its wavelength. What you want is when light goes directly down on a car, that you have a very different number of photons return than if you measure the camera here, the light that reflects at an angle. This is what makes a car look three-dimensional. As you move your head, some parts look very bright, some parts look very dark. That's what you want. That's a beautiful three-dimensional depth finish. Well, these cameras, by measuring each individual photon of light and then running a machine learning artificial intelligence stack, can let you know at a sub-millimeter level on each layer of paint, potentially 12 or 15 layers of paint deep, how perfect the paint is. And it's actually more accurate than a human eye. So what that means is I, even as a new hire, can mix new paint and load it in these robots. I can change the nozzles on the robots, the clothes the robots wear, and know, is that car better than the car before? And we never have to stop experimenting to improve. Are we using more environmental paints? Do the paint cost less? Is it faster? Is it higher luster? Is it more beautiful? Because this digital self-management for paint takes less than 1 second. So every car goes through this. Now, what this means is the machine learning stacks in each area of the factory are different for each area in the factory. As you're designing rubber stripping to go around the rear deck lid to make sure water doesn't penetrate even in a storm, and that the car is difficult to steal, difficult for someone to open it without the key, or without the codes. You have digital self-management for each of these, and their job is to answer any questions you would have answered someone else. What this makes is working in Tesla is a lot like playing a video game on your phone, where you walk up to a manufacturing and design area. You start designing and you start manufacturing, and these apps, these digital self-managing apps, basically tell you, did you make something better or not? It's like a video game. You don't read a manual, you look at the score going up. And this is one of the actual DSM screens from an area where I often work. Now, what you almost can't see is there are many, many, many little circles. And those are mostly undetectable to the human eye, but those circles are paint. Not, some of them aren't flaws, but less than perfect paint that the AI can detect that even a human can't. And your job is to make a change that makes even fewer of those. So the cars are optically perfect, even if looked at under a microscope, even if a human couldn't see it without enhanced lenses. The AI can see it, so you can be reducing the count of defects and their size. Okay, I see something coming to me in WhatsApp. Okay, good. Excellent. Now, I think there's a WhatsApp channel where questions can come in as we go. Maybe there are some already, 26 minutes in. I've talked about budgeting being tied to innovation speed. And so Tesla does not have a budget cycle, and everyone is encouraged to spend money. And then I talked about digital self-management. I am on a WhatsApp channel, but actually don't see questions. I only see comments. So I'll type, hi, is this where questions come in? And I'll check.
Joe?
Ah, yes. Okay. Are they on WhatsApp as well, or is it audio only?
So let me just explain. The WhatsApp channel is just for us. So it's the speakers and us. So we are agreeing if something goes wrong and so on. So you're not going to be getting questions in the WhatsApp channel. Although Bjarte just messaged you that that you are actually far further in beyond budgeting than he's actually going to explain. So he said you should sit in through his presentation, coming up. But we do have quite many questions already in. We have a Mentimeter in here, just in house. So as we come to the Q&A, so in about 20 minutes or so, you're gonna get a lot of questions. So until then, you just continue with the story.
Okay, thank you. messaging back to that. Okay. What I'd like to show next is how Tesla launches teams. I hope more and more companies choose to operate this way. Dun, 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 dun. When I joined Tesla, the total onboarding in the company was 4 hours long. There were already nearly 100,000 employees, which established a new culture. I imagine until nearly 100% of staff, of headcount, is operating in a way like Tesla is with their culture, you'd probably need 2 to 10 days of training per person and follow-up coaching. I think that's likely the value of Agile coaches. Tesla does not have Agile coaches. Tesla does not have Agile training. They have 4 hours of onboarding. And then with more than 100,000 people acting in the most Agile way I have ever seen, that culture perpetuates itself. So what happens in only 4 hours that Agilifies anyone that comes in, no matter what company they were from? We read 4 pages. Those 4 pages are called the Anti-Handbook Handbook. Those 4 pages have been leaked online onto a website called Scribd, not by me, by another employee. Tesla has never taken it down. Tesla in general is very open about their information, but they've never given anyone permission to use it. So I will put the Scribd link here. If you take a picture of the screen, if you want to, this is the link. You can read the 4-page Anti-Handbook Handbook here, which is the training for all Tesla employees. What I will do is I'll summarize it. They're 16 items long. They say, we have high standards and your manager is never going to tell you what to do. If you're the type of person that waits on your manager to tell you what the standards are, you won't fit here. We're not trying to sound mean, that's just true. Then they say, trust. You need to completely trust everyone else in this building. They're going to be spending money as fast as they can, and so are you. They're going to be building robots. Your life is going to depend on each other's work. You need to show up with full trust every day. Communication. They say never wait for it. If you're the type of person that needs to wait for confirmation before you execute, you won't last here. They say you need to work right now on whatever you think is best with little or no instruction or approval. It says your job duties are anything. Your duty is to look wherever the bottleneck is, wherever the limiting factor is, and contribute to that the best you can. And if you don't know how, your job is to learn the best you can how. So you're not here only to write software. You're not here only to build robots. You're not here only to friction stir weld steel. You're here to do whatever the bottleneck is. And that includes designing processes, testing processes, testing materials, developing new materials, installing new materials, writing software. It is the most cross-functional workplace I've ever experienced. Goals and feedback. It says, again, you won't be given any goals or any feedback. Your job is to find what needs to be done and do it immediately. Then it says safety is absolutely necessary. It's absolutely important. If you do something not safe intentionally, you will be let go of the company. If you do something not safe accidentally, you will be helped, supported, loved, taken care of, but you can't do something unsafe intentionally. And if you do a lot of unsafe things, even accidentally, they can't afford to keep you as an employee. You'd be a liability. It says attendance. Vacation is there to be used. Use your vacation. You don't have to take vacation, but you are highly encouraged to take vacation. It says schedule time off as needed anytime, no matter what position you're in. Make sure your team has what they need to continue so that your team's work can continue. Tesla's workday is 24 hours a day in 2 groups, 2 12-hour groups. That includes writing software. That's every function. All work is done in around the clock, 24 hours a day. The work never stops. The work on autopilot never stops. The work on digital self-management never stops. Of course, the production never stops. The new designs never stop. It's all 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's made clear in the attendance. Now, you get to choose, do you work days or nights? Do you work 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 5 p.m. to 5 a.m.? You get to choose that. Sick days, it says, here's the sick day policy. Vacations, please take them. It says, if you ever don't show up for work and don't tell anyone, and your team is expecting you, they will think you're a jerk. And they say, the Musk companies are no place for a jerk. So they'll ask you why you didn't show up if you ever come back again. But if you don't have a really good reason, you will be let go immediately, because they say that means you're a jerk. Outside employment is specifically allowed and encouraged. You are encouraged and allowed to work for another company, including a competitor, all you want. The Tesla handbook only says you won't be given any different treatment than anyone else. So if you come into work tired from your other job, that's up to you. You need to perform just like anyone else, whether you have another job or not. But you can work for a competing company. You can work for your own company. I was teaching Agile training classes online while I was working at Tesla on my days off. It says stupid stuff. What you won't find is a list of stupid stuff. But though they give a few examples, mostly about safety. They say, but if you intentionally do something stupid, you might be fired immediately. Once is enough. If you intentionally do something stupid. If you accidentally do something stupid, people are going to love and support and help you and try to help you understand that that was stupid and help you never do it again. But if you intentionally do something stupid, you will be let go immediately. And the handbook says we will not list everything that's considered stupid. We need you to think that through. Then it says fun. It says, if you can do anything to make your workplace more fun that doesn't reduce your output, do it immediately. The Musk companies are actually the most playful places I have ever been. SpaceX built a bar, an alcohol bar, not just any bar, a tiki bar with carved wood masks and palm trees and everything. A tiki bar on top of the launch tower for Starship, the largest rocket ever made. In Tesla, California, where I spent most of my time working, there's a roller coaster inside. In the opening for Giga Berlin, was a rave party with 10-meter tall inflatable puppets dancing to lasers and smoke. This is actually normal for the Musk companies. It's basically a nonstop party. And as long as you can continually write good software, design new products, build and install new products, that's awesome. Have as much fun as you possibly can, as long as it doesn't slow you down. And then the moral of the story is you're not going to be waiting for feedback. You don't have a manager. If you think you have a manager, that means you're probably waiting for someone, and waiting for someone is not a good thing. So work as fast as you sustainably can on whatever the bottleneck is, and be self-determined. And then it says resolving concerns. There is human resources. In fact, there are 2 human resources departments. They're there to help you. And it says how to contact them. All employees will physically work every day. The goal is 100% of staff directly works on the product. We all had ergonomics and safety training, because every employee is going to be lifting 20 kilograms into robots, bending metal, drilling holes in things, melting plastics. So you learned which positions are healthier and safer for you to do for hours on end, and which are more likely to cause injury. Every employee goes through that training. We then installed the digital self-management apps on whatever phone we brought in with us. And then we got our security badges and safety shoes. That was it, 4 hours. And then into work the next day. At this point, I'd like to transition to questions. I'll zoom out so people can see the entire Agile developer landscape. And thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Not sure how much of the sound of the applause you got because we don't have mics in between, but you could actually see the applause. So we have a lot of questions, but as I said, first, I would like to take questions live. So even if you wrote the question in Menti and I have them here, it would be best if you can just raise the hand and the mic will be brought to you and you can ask the question directly to Joe. And while we are waiting for that, I will ask the first question, which got the most upvotes. Yeah, so the suggestion here from our guys is if you can stop sharing, then we will see you even better. Yeah, and you will also see the room here. So number one voted question, and I think you touched it in the second half of your presentation, is how do you manage, motivate, fire underperforming employees? Because there's I mean, to us in our European culture, what you just described is, I mean, it's awesome, but it's also something, ooh, how would we, get this step by step into our culture, which is not so cutting edge like the one in under Elon. So Joe.
Okay, well, to be clear, somehow what Tesla is doing is working in California and Shanghai and Germany now in the EU. So these are very different cultures. I don't know how many of you have worked in Shanghai, but the culture is very different than California. And I don't know how many people really realize this. The culture between Texas and Nevada and California is extremely different. I don't know how many people notice that. The USA is really like 50 little countries, and they have their own culture. and the Texas culture and the Nevada culture and the California culture are also actually quite far apart. Not as far apart as Germany to Shanghai, but not so same. In all of those locations, I heard the same thing, and I primarily worked in California. So that was mostly where I experienced things. But I did go to Texas, and I communicated remotely with Shanghai and with Brandenburg as it was opening. But from all locations, I heard the same thing. Your manager doesn't put pressure on you because most people don't have a manager. You put pressure on yourself. Why? Why does this happen? Why do people hold themselves accountable for high performance? The short answer is low performers quit. They left themselves. Why? Why didn't they hang on and enjoy a paycheck? Why? Something about the mission, that 1,000-year goal, is in the culture of the company now, in all of these locations. There truly is a feeling that you are trying your best to save the environment or help the environment stay pretty good for a little longer. And it really feels like it's up to you. And that permeates the culture. So there is no manager to say, you need to do better. But I have never worked harder in my life. It really feels mission driven. And I bet all of you have experienced a mission at one point or another. Maybe it was a sports team, or maybe it was a religious event or a community event. And that seems to be common in almost every culture in one way or another. That is in the Tesla culture, in all the Musk companies' culture. And it seems to come from this 1,000-year goal. And part of what makes that happen, even at work, is there aren't promotions. So it's not like someone is trying to get their idea picked so they can get a promotion. There's no promotion to get. It's simply, okay, 12 people have 12 ideas. Which one is measured best? And it doesn't mean you don't do the other 11. There is more than one way to do things in a building the size as a Musk company building. So you don't have the infighting. What that means is the company is truly, almost all the time, doing whatever is most effective to the mission. So you see it all the time everywhere. It's not this boss is trying to politically get ahead of this boss. There's no boss. And that makes it feel more like you're doing something as a community to try to do something worthwhile. So underperformers typically burn out. I don't even want to say they're underperforming so they quit. It's just if people's lifestyle didn't keep up. Like if someone likes to drink a lot the night before and come into work really sleepy, they just won't be as quick to think and to innovate. And it's not that they're even a bad person, just their lifestyle right now is not high performing. They might say, this isn't the workplace for me. This is just too quick for me. It's more like being on a capable sports team. No one has to tell you you're not doing awesome. You just think, can I keep up?
All right, thanks. I think it cleared it. So now we have live questions from the audience. So let's hear it.
So hi Joe, my name is Blanche. I'm freelance and I'm currently, on kind of self-chosen vacation. So I want to reset myself to a time before primary school when everything is possible. So listening to you, it sounds awesome. But my question would be, it sounds like Tesla is testing new stuff and technology because this is kind of easiest thing to do. So if I would be thinking, oh, I would really like to work there, the challenge for me would be, wow, is Tesla doing something to enhance society, to make life better, not by getting us better cars and getting us into space, but also doing something on medical field, doing something on social field for everybody here on this earth. And if the answer is yes, because if you have 1,000 years mission, you definitely have to think about that. So if you can share something, that would be awesome. Thanks.
I love it. That's very dear to me too. My experience is absolutely yes. And there's also a problem. So the absolutely yes, I do think the Musk companies are improving the environment, making vehicles safer. As lower cost vehicles become available and the boring company tunnels become available, it becomes more part of mass transportation than personal transportation. I do believe the Musk companies will get into construction more so than just the factories, but also what a city means. They are already trying to approach what truth is in media and advertising, which is structurally social. Now, that might be super controversial. I'm a huge fan of what's being tried, but that's a whole other conversation. What I'll say is there's attempts on multiple fronts that could make the world a much better place, is what I'll say in general. But there's also a problem. The problem is the work culture is super intense. And if that is what scales out across the stars, like let's say Musk is successful and 1,000 years from now, there's people, humans living all throughout the galaxy in different solar systems, right? Because that is the goal, right? And they use Dogecoin and they use Twitter and all this stuff happens. Well, if they're all working as hard as I worked in Tesla and as I saw people work in SpaceX, I think we've missed something beautiful. Yes, you have 3 days off and 4 days off. Is that really enough to be the type of parent you want to be? Is that really enough to learn to play an instrument or be an artist beautifully? Like, I think what kind of culture do I wish spread out across the stars? I hope it's a lot of artists, a lot of awesome parents, a lot of great kids, a lot of people that have a lot of fun. And I hope it's excellent engineering, excellent capability. But I hope it's not only this incredible hard work ethic. So what I'm trying to do now is I call it #luxury stoic. So stoic means doing hard things because they're the right thing to do. And luxury means doing comfortable things because they're comfortable. And the overlap of those two things is what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to say, what is as fast as the Musk companies, but really comfortable? So I've started working 14 to 20 hour days for fun remotely from an office in Hawaii. And for me, that's part of it. Like if I'm going to work really intensely, can I do it from a super nice place? And that's an experiment. I don't think you have to work that many hours necessarily. Another experiment I want to run is, can a new product development and manufacturing organization work as fast as Tesla, but instead of 2 12-hour shifts, could they have 4 6-hour shifts? So people are actually working less than a normal workday. That would be part of the luxury, but still maybe could they be as fast as a Musk company? That's my current passion.
All right. Thank you, Joe. More live questions? We have tons in Menti. Yeah, there's one here. Okay. So we always prefer live questions, but then there are tons in Menti also.
Hi, Joe. I have a question. You mentioned that you basically don't have budgets. You don't really have any sprints or time frames. I have a question about teams. Do you run teams? What kind of structure do you have for teams? Is it based on technical expertise, knowledge, or based on projects? Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to see it on screen, yeah?
Thank you.
Awesome question. There were boards all over Tesla and they didn't have a name. Now, some of you might know the consulting company, Bain and Company. Years ago, I trained all of them in what I thought Agile was at the time, before I went to work at Tesla. And the leader of the Agile program that came out of that I trained at Bain and Company created a Harvard Business Review article that was really good, of all of my past clients, like 60 clients. And they didn't use my name anywhere. And they took all the credit for work they didn't do. It was all work I did. And I thought that was so gross. So this board that says how budget is allocated, how money is allocated in Tesla, had no name. So I claimed it. I called it the Justice Board. So we'll see if Bain and Company can write a Harvard Business Review article and not say my name the next time. So how the Justice Board works. So these boards were already in Tesla. I didn't create them, but they had no name. I did improve them as part of Agile at Tesla. And then since then, I've improved on the concept. But what these boards do is the top level says how much money is in the company bank account and how fast is it being spent. That's the top level of all these boards, and all employees can see them. So all employees can see the company bank account and how fast is the money being spent. And then you have an agenda. This is anything you want to spend money on. That can be as big as autopilot. It can be as small as automating butyl tape. It's a type of tape with sound deadening and insulative properties, where your feet go in the car under the carpet. This is a relatively small project. It's a robot. You're configuring the robot to apply this tape in the footwell versus all of autopilot. On the board, you also have things as big as the Gigafactory as a product. So you have Giga Berlin, Giga Texas, Giga Shanghai, Giga New York, Fremont, Giga Nevada. A lot of people don't realize there's a huge Tesla operation in the Netherlands, the supercharger factory, and here are the pyramids of Egypt for scale to show you how huge these buildings are. So this is a project. Anything you want to spend money on goes on this board, however big or however small. And you propose it through an app on your phone to this board. Then, like an open space conference, whenever anyone starts their shift at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m., they look at this agenda and they use what's called the law of 2 feet to decide where they're going to go. Now, Andrej Karpathy has chosen to use the law of 2 feet and go to Tesla AI every day for years. So you can go to the same project for years if you want to. No one's going to tell you to leave the project. But you could switch anytime to go to Cybertruck design and production ramp. You can just walk up and try to add value. You can walk up to any of the projects in any of the Musk companies and try to simply start work. What makes that possible is there's almost no solo work. Almost all the work is done in mob. So you join a group with maybe 5 people, maybe 3 people, and as long as one of them is experienced in what they're doing, as long as one of them has an idea of what to do next, they can give directions to whoever the driver is, and we can rotate the driver. After you've done that a few hours, you have some idea of what's being done. After you've done it a few months, you might be the expert in the whole company. After you've done it a few years, you are for sure the expert in the company. So this is how you self-allocate, use the law of 2 feet to bring yourself to any project. Well, calling it a project isn't fair because anything you're going to spend money on can go here. So these could be teams, these could be goals, these could be products, these could be projects, these could be Kaizen initiatives or product enhancements. You can propose new ones through apps on your phone, and the AI software also proposes apps on their phone. This is also where you see the top key progress indicators. For SpaceX, their top value is cost per kilogram to low Earth orbit. That's it. So that's how all work in SpaceX is prioritized. Will this work? Is it an experiment to reduce the cost to get a kilogram into low Earth orbit? And you can see SpaceX is successful. They are now far and away the least expensive way to put any weight into orbit, any mass into orbit, by an order of magnitude. There's never been a less expensive method to put mass into orbit, and that's SpaceX goal. For Tesla, it's the primary goal is shortening the length of time between now and full renewable energy use for all sectors across the world, all power, all driving, all construction equipment, everything. So you have this huge goal. More near term, it's cost per kilowatt hour and how many kilometers you can drive per kilowatt hour. And that lets you self-manage for any of these initiatives to determine if these initiatives are worth spending money on or not.
All right. Thank you very much. That one cleared the question and even more. More questions, more live questions. If not, then I'm going to take one from Menti. It's about procurement. Okay. It says, if you have no procurement function, how do you make sure one, I mean, I'm sure you got this question in different audiences. So how do you make sure one, money doesn't fly out, and two, a purchase was made with commercial sense, as not everybody knows how to make bigger purchases, have legal knowledge, etc. So purchase question.
Awesome. Okay, the second part's easier than the first. Elon Musk will never sign a contract that's longer than 1 page and not written in simple words. So the legal department's job is to provide contract templates that are less than 1 page long and are written in simple words. And if the other organization won't agree to that, they won't sign. So what that means is everyone in the company has these very simple contract templates. So this part is more straightforward because the legal teams has already done the hard work. They will not sign a document that's longer than a page and not written in simple words. The first part is more challenging. Yeah, large deals, you need some understanding. Buying 1,000 robots might have different mechanics than buying one. So that's where the AI helps you. That's where AutoBidder helps you. What you want is a check of, am I getting a good price? Whether it's 1,000 robots or one robot. And that's what AutoBidder is really good at doing, being trained on the open market. And I'm not saying AutoBidder is perfect, but it's really good. And so if AutoBidder says, yes, this looks good, you're in a very good, it's very likely it is reasonably good. Now, could the product have been 3% less if you had gone through traditional procurement? Maybe. No one cares because it might have taken 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 hours, or 3 months longer. Speed is the only, speed of iteration, speed of improvement is the only thing that matters in the long run, way more than saving 3%. Because think of everyone's salaries over the 3 hours, 3 days, or 3 months while you wait for procurement. You're paying that without those parts. It's less expensive to spend some money more now, even if your deal's not perfect. That said, AutoBidder is really good. And in some cases, AutoBidder might give you the best deal, even over a traditional procurement team. And nothing against traditional procurement teams. For those of you that are deeply interested, I'm a huge fan of lean agile procurement, which Merkel Cleaner and many other folks in Europe, some of you in the room, are probably experts in. Lean agile procurement, if some of it is aided by machine learning, is very similar to what I experienced in the Musk companies.
All right. Thanks for this one. Live questions? Raised hands. All right. This is the one that appeared very early on in your speech. I'm going to take this one. So if you design 60 new parts every day, okay, does that mean each car is somewhat different? I would say yes, but then this follow-up question, how do you ensure service parts and train service technicians if every car is different?
Awesome. Unfortunately, this will be the last question. I do have another appointment. I'm so sorry. But you can tweet to me. I'm at Joe Justice on Twitter, and I currently have 100% response rate. So if you have a question, or if someone would be willing to tweet and tag this event and tweet to me anything from Menti, I'll answer it probably in the next 24 hours.
Thank you.
But for this question, new parts need to be backwards compatible. So if an old part fails, you can give the new part to that person. If the new part is not backwards compatible, we make an adapter so it can still plug in. This is super important because what you don't want is, if there's 1,000 versions of the heat pump, you don't want a warehouse full of 1,000 different versions and you're trying to find the same one the customer had. Instead, whatever the newest heat pump is should fit in the same place, should connect where any of the previous ones did to swap them in and out. That way, maintenance technicians don't have to be trained on 1,000 versions of a heat pump. Instead, they're trained on how to unplug and plug in any heat pump because they plug and unplug in the same way. Everyone, thank you so much. It is absolutely my honor and privilege to be part of this event. I've requested it be recorded, and I've requested that it be subtitled in any language other than English. I think I know which one it's going to be. So I'm excited for this to be available for people, regardless of what their preferred language may be. And thank you very much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.